Kia ora koutou, no mai haere mai, and welcome to Mahi Matters, New Zealand's employment market update. Today we're looking at equity and equality, supporting women in entrepreneurship and leadership. So what's holding women back from breaking the leadership ceiling in 2025? This week we're joined by Professor Christine Woods, Dame Theresa Gattung Chair for Women in Entrepreneurship at University of Auckland, to dive deep into the realities facing women in entrepreneurship and leadership in 2025. Also on today's show, New Zealand jobs ads are down, but why are HR and recruitment roles surging? We'll explore our latest job opportunities across New Zealand, and lastly, we'll reveal our new social media polls where we ask if you think AI is helping or hurting your hiring processes. Now, despite steady gains, 2025 still isn't a level playing field for women aiming to lead or build companies. In a recent article, Professor Christine Woods, University of Auckland, argued that progress requires equity, targeted support that accounts for different starting points and not just blanket equality. With growing pressure on organisations to create meaningful change, HR leaders are being urged to step up and address the systemic barriers that remain. It's worth examining these roadblocks more closely to shape practical solutions that actually move the dial. So what barriers are women in leadership and entrepreneurship facing in 2025? To discuss this further, we're joined today by Professor Christine Woods, Dame Theresa Gattung Chair for Women in Entrepreneurship at Auckland University. Kia ora, Christine.
Kia ora, Shannon, and lovely to be here.
Excellent. Firstly, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Well, as you've introduced me, I am the Dame Theresa Gattung Chair for Women in Entrepreneurship, and I took up that role a couple of years ago. But I've been working at the University of Auckland since finishing my PhD, which was about 25 years ago, and have really fortunate to have a mix in terms of what I do. So kind of the theory side that you would normally see at a university, but also the practical side of working with entrepreneurial owner-managers of businesses, largely through the work that I do with the 𝐼𝐸.
Excellent. Now we're going to start big, not muck around with things. So when we say equity and equality, what does that really mean in the context of women in business today? And I guess it's been fairly apparent that there's a lot of people that really don't understand the difference between the two. So can you help us out there?
Yeah, if I'm thinking about equality, it's like men and women having the vote. We both want to have the vote. So one vote for me as a woman and one vote for my dad or my brother or husband or whatever. So that's equality. And when we are thinking about equity, as you kind of hinted, we're really thinking about circumstances there. Not everybody is starting from the same place. So what can we do to ensure that people are able to reach the potential that they have given these different kinds of circumstances? And that's about equity.
Sure. And what are some of the more persistent barriers that women are facing, particularly in entrepreneurship and leadership right now? And are there any new ones that are emerging that we need to focus on as well?
Well, sadly, the same barriers and obstacles that women have been facing for quite a while. So research both here in Aotearoa as well as internationally would say that there are three common barriers. The first one would be access to finance, to entrepreneurial finance. The second would be the kind of the work-care balance that seems to kind of play out with women having to share much more of the burden or the responsibility, if you like, for doing children, parents, taking care of households. So that's the second one. And the third one would be access to good networks and support systems, structures that are really going to support women when they're thinking about and then endeavouring to grow a business. as an entrepreneur. So those would be the three key ones. I don't think there are new ones. The new one might be a complacency that somehow we've achieved equality when in fact we haven't.
Sure. And do you think that the glass ceiling has changed form, or has it just gotten harder to see? So you mentioned that I guess that the visibility of the problem.
Well, I teach an undergraduate class on women and entrepreneurship, and just kicked off for this semester. So we're kind of 2 weeks in. And as I said before, I really like that theory and practice coming together. So we've been really fortunate to have two amazing women entrepreneurs come in. The first was Serena Alexander, who is the co-founder and CEO of 𝐥𝐿𝐻, which is a business that is endeavouring to create sustainable concrete. So needless to say, that's a fairly male-dominated industry. So she'd go to a conference, and yes, there is a New Zealand conference on concrete. There might be 400 people there, and there'd only be three or four women. The second guest speaker I had was 𝐥𝐿𝐻𝐞𝐫𝐬𝐡𝐢𝐩, and she's the co-founder and CEO of Moody Blends. Now, for both of those women, when they were asked by the class, what are the kind of barriers that you face and how do you find it being a woman? And they will often say that it's both an advantage and a disadvantage. So yes, there's the disadvantage of being underestimated, of not being taken seriously. But the advantage can be that because they are underestimated or because they're slightly different or stand out, that gives them the opportunity to be able to kind of impress upon people or to demonstrate what a great product, what a great business that they have. So there's really a kind of a blend of both. And I think what we're seeing is a lot of younger women coming through with an ability to be able to stand in their space with support around them. And I'd say for both of these women, they have really good support around them, but to be able to take advantage of the difference. But still, unfortunately, they'll come up against those barriers. And so they just have to work that little bit harder.
Sure, it's not on my list of questions here, but do you think, as part of what you're saying there, I guess playing into those strengths or targeting directly into the sisterhood, for want of a better word, to be able to go, hey, actually, I'm doing this, we're doing things differently, and it's all for you, actually, or looking at those different viewpoints.
Yeah, and with that, both of the women that I mentioned have a really clear understanding of their purpose. So, you know, for Serena, it's around creating $1 billion business that absolutely changes that industry so that we have zero carbon from concrete, because at the moment, it produces quite a significant amount of the world's concrete. So there's that purpose there. And then for Kate, the purpose of the well-being of women and all, you know, different parts. So they have a clear understanding of their purpose. They understand why they're doing what they're doing. And then what they're doing and how they're doing that is then, again, yes, standing in their space, getting support. And that idea of sisterhood is really interesting, but alongside that is the notion of allyship. So how do we call men in to support women in business? And I think there are amazing men doing fantastic things within the ecosystem to support women. And we just need kind of more of those men doing the things that help change the system. So, you know, I talked about the vote. So when we were given the vote, we didn't vote to give ourselves the vote. In 1893, men voted to give us the vote. So in order to change those systemic barriers, we need, you know, men working alongside us. And, you know, I'm really fortunate to have had the privilege of working with amazing men who have really stepped in as allies. And both Serena and Kate would say that would be a situation that supported them as well.
Fantastic. Well, that probably leads a lot into the next question there. So, of course, the barriers that women face in business ownership often mirror those that come up in corporate leadership as well. Mm-hmm. So what are some other ways that HR leaders or business leaders can step up to be able to address both sides of that equation?
So I think that idea of allyship, so who are those men within an organization? Who are those men that can support HR teams and so on? But the other one I've often reflected on is, how do we write up the skills that parents have from being parents? So let's take the situation with mothers. A mum's been out of the paid workforce. She's been working, but out of the paid workforce for 4 or 5 years. How do we write up all of the different skills and attributes that she's gained as being a mum? And, we can play this up for dads as well, but we're focusing on women. How did they get written up into a CV? Instead of saying, oh, well, there's this gap for 3 or 4 years when I was having kids, where are we going to talk about, time management skills, relationship skills, networking, all of those things that have continued to be developed within the context of, kind of being a mum. So where are HR directors writing those in to job descriptions? Because I think that often gets overlooked, and yet we all know, if we're a mum ourselves, or if we've looked at mums or grandmas or whatever, amazing skills that have direct transferability into the workplace.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I mean, it's not like they've been having a holiday throughout that time and completely lost all their skills or haven't been using any of those factors. And I think hopefully it has changed now, but I know certainly earlier on in my career in recruitment, sometimes you would come across a CV of a mum returning to the workplace and they had done exactly that. So put time management skills, budgeting, etc., within there. But it was almost dismissed as a novelty and well, that doesn't really count. It's not a real job. So hopefully we've progressed from there. But yeah, as you say, there's definitely still more work to be done there. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Christine's details are there on the screen if you want to see the other projects and things that she's been working on and interested in that space. I'm sure she'd love to hear from you as well.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Fantastic. Thanks for coming on.
Kia ora. Thank you very much, Shannon.
Okay, so for Mahi Media today, we're looking at, of course, we've seen that across Aotearoa, job ads are down, but why are HR and recruitment roles surging? So overall job ads in New Zealand continue to fall, but there's one category bucking that trend. As I said, HR and recruitment roles are on the rise. So we look at why that sudden spike. I think a big factor is it's that hiring hasn't become any easier. If anything, it's more complex. So employers are telling us that application numbers are up, but quantity, of course, does not equal quality. High volumes of unsuitable candidates, people without the right skills or working rights, are slowing down recruitment and frustrating hiring managers. And on top of that, businesses are bracing for major employment law changes. The Employment Relations Amendment Bill proposes some big shifts, including a new contractor gateway test, which changes how contractor versus employee status is determined, rebalancing personal grievance remedies and reducing payouts for misconduct-related cases, as well as a high income threshold, limiting some rights to raise grievances. There's also the removal of the 30-day rule for collective agreements and the active choice union form. And I'm still going, lots of changes here, a potential pay secrecy bill which would make it illegal to stop employees discussing pay. So add this to health and safety reforms and changes to KiwiSaver contributions, and you can see why organisations need strong HR capability to manage compliance, guide change, and to keep people engaged. But here's the positive takeaway. A rise in HR and recruitment roles can also signal that businesses are ready to move forward. So after a long period of caution and holding off on growth plans, companies are starting to rebuild teams and invest in capability for the future. It's a sign that some organisations have had enough of staying stagnant and are preparing to take some bold steps toward growth, which absolutely is a good thing. So an employer tip, if your internal team is stretched or you're struggling to find the right candidates, this is the time to partner with a specialist recruiter. We know where to find talent in a competitive market, can screen effectively, and help you build a workforce that's future ready so you can focus on running your business. But let's take a look now at the hot jobs of the week. And before we go into that, of course, there's still time to reach out for us to share our market report with some great trends. Keep up to date with what's happening in the world of work in Aotearoa. Okay, that is it for today's show. Thanks as always for joining us, and we'd love to hear your comments, so be sure to put those through and we'll do our best to answer them in the next show. See you next time. Thanks for joining.